Hi again, everybody, and welcome to a new edition of Newsmakers. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Thursday, September 25th. I am joined by my two friends and colleagues, Nick Welsh, executive editor and angry poodle of the Santa Barbara News Press, and Josh Molina, man of many hats, political writer for Newshawk and host of the global smash hit podcast, Santa Barbara Talks.
I
Thanks.
just want to interject there. I'm not with the news press.
Did I say the news press?
You did.
I must have that on my mind. Well, that's a fair interjection. Award-winning columnist and executive editor of the Santa Barbara Independent, soon to be in direct competition with the news. All right, enough of that. So, Josh, you had this interesting story about what I, having come to town in 2002, will ever refer to as the Fess Parker, the also known as the Hilton Beachfront Resort or something on the waterfront. And there was a dispute about whether they're going to be allowed to build, what, 73 new rooms and not have any parking. And it all went back to some shaggy dog story about a development agreement. But what did the council decide about that?
It's very complicated. I'm going to spare you all the details. Anyone who wants to know can go research it or read the
Read your
media
story. You
coverage.
can read your story.
Yes, because it is complicated. But essentially, what happened is that the Hilton, formerly the Doubletree and formerly Fess Parker's Red Lion Inn when it was built, wants to get rid of tennis courts and parking and add 73 new hotel rooms. And this is the iconic beachfront hotel right by the uh, rainbow statue, the chrome statue out there on the waterfront. Okay.
With the beautiful lawn.
With the lawn, which is technically most of it's a public park and anyone can use it. And so this is this destination. It was Santa Barbara's big iconic conference event. There's weddings there. And so they want to add rooms. And the Planning Commission approved this. There was an appeal by a union and they Unite Here and they appealed it and said, whoa, wait a minute, this is not allowed. This development agreement that allowed them the possibility to add rooms down the road, this thing expired and they've also violated the terms because as part of building this hotel a while ago, and by the way, this is where it gets complicated, a separate hotel across the street, which has not been built yet, they built a hostel. It was called the Wayfarer, and it was intended to provide low cost accommodations along the waterfront in the coastal zone. They built it. It was a low cost hostel for a few years, but then it was sold to another company who has rebranded it as the Moxie, not the Kids Museum, but the Moxie with a Y. And these rooms, some of them can cost seasonally up to $600 a night.
So
Hardly
that's relatively low cost
yeah, but hardly affordable for anybody traveling who needs low cost
with a
accommodations.
backpack and a
So
ponytail.
this appeal was basically saying this development agreement is a sham, and also we don't have these affordable accommodations. So the union appealed it. The Fess Park, or the I should say the Hilton, uses non-unionized workers to they plan to do this work. So that was
So,
an
non-unionized workers as the hotel workers or as the construction
as
workers
the
or both?
construction workers,
Okay.
yes. And so there was this big appeal saying you can't do this. And essentially, the city council said, the Fess Parker team, the Eli Parker, the son of the legendary Fess Parker, his sister, they're running the business, said you can't really hold these people accountable just because this low cost hostel is not low cost. It was sold. The thing that came out of it, and what Megan Harmon, council member, said, and a couple of the others, was in 2016, when we amended this development agreement and approved this hostel, we probably should have put some sort of restriction that says it's a low cost hostel in
In
perpetuity.
perpetuity, right? And
Because because I guess hostel prices range quite a bit. So it's technically a hostel, but not really because each room has its own bathroom. And typically what a hostel is, shared space. So that was sort of the big deal. At the end of the day, the tennis courts at the Hilton are gone. Some of the parking is gone, the tennis shop, and we're going to see
And it's going to
another
get built
level.
with non-union labor.
Yes, and we're going to see another level of hotel rooms, and you'll be able to see it from Cabrillo Boulevard. So that's the
Are
issue.
they adding parking or taking away parking?
They're taking away parking, but they are adding bike parking, Jerry.
Oh, good. All right, Jerry.
Oh, okay. Well, that concludes our show for today.
But I'm hearing, I mean, two things. One, I mean, since the union makes a good point, but they miss on the technicalities that matter in a court of law. And I think this is also a shakedown by the union to get a contract so that I understand it's not just the construction workers, but the employees of the hotel to be unionized. Which, to be fair, I know shakedown is a pejorative term. If it was unionized, it might help, keep the wages up a little bit more than they would otherwise go. And I think that when people talk about the high cost of housing in Santa Barbara and the high cost of living in Santa Barbara, part of the problem is that the relative wages are low, and part of the reason for that is the lack of any powerful union presence. But it was a shakedown nonetheless. And I think what we really find is that all these conditions that we impose on big developments in hopes of making them affordable and accessible to common mortals, we really write in a sloppy way. So they messed up in terms of how they wrote that. They should have had that language. And the other thing is, there's supposed to be open space on the lawn. There's supposed to be open space at the Red Lion. And really, the only extent that it was ever used as open space to the public was a whole bunch of planning wonks used to get together there and drink greyhounds and play croquet once a year on the Fest Parker lawn.
Did you
That
cover
was
that?
it.
Did you cover that when you
Huh?
did you cover those meetings?
I went.
Here's a question though. Nick raises an interesting point. Rick Caruso, owner of the Miramar, and you heard it here first, California's next governor. When he was trying to get through his latest machination over there, he set aside, I don't remember what, 10, 15 units of housing for employees of the hotel, affordable housing. How come this very housing-oriented council didn't try to hold up the developer for that?
Well, it's a different scenario. In Montecito, I mean, some might argue that the housing is a little bit of a sham, that it was really a project to build
Caruso's housing, I mean.
Caruso's housing to build these very extremely high-end luxury retail boutique shops. And as part to sweeten that, we're going to do some employee housing for our workers. Why didn't they bring that up? I think that they would have gotten laughed out of the chambers by the
Because
city attorney,
it
by
wasn't
Sarah
planned.
Connect and Tava Ostringer. They said there's no way you can do that. Fess Parker has and that family, a long history of ties to the city. I mean, that whole waterfront, even if it's not actively used in front of the hotel, it's passive open space, right? It's not development. They could have built a little bit closer. And of
There's a
course,
jump in there, Josh. Fest Parker has gotten more beloved since he has died. He was a very contentious figure. He could not take yes for an answer at times. And he and City Hall bumped heads. He was a formidable and compelling person. There's absolutely no doubt. But
Rick,
he and City,
did you have a coonskin cap when you were a boy? When
I'm a
Chris
little
was
too
playing
young for.
Navy? You,
I like to say I'm too young for that, Jerry.
yeah, that's probably right. Yeah. Well, I remember mine fine. I should have held on to it. But okay. And then I guess the last question concerns me. So they're going to tear up the tennis courts. Is no one coming to the resort riding their bike, playing tennis anymore? Or are they going to put in pickleball courts?
There was no talk of replacing with pickleball or tennis courts. It's kind of a dead space in back of that hotel.
Nobody plays tennis back there.
Nobody,
No,
tennis is going
and it just
down.
like it's just kind of silent. The parking doesn't fill up back there. It's this that space could be revitalized and made more vibrant, and I think that's what they're hoping for. When I took my photo, there was one person hitting tennis balls from a machine, but other than that, it was pretty quiet.
Well, we'll have to get
And one last point, what was really striking was the vote. It was unanimous against. And that is unusual. The fact that Wendy Santa Maria is a union organizer by profession, the fact that she did not go along with it speaks, I would say, volumes to the case.
Yeah, I think it speaks volumes of Mayor Randy Rouse's ability to build consensus. But
Well, I will say to Nick and
who was somebody must have been absent, right? Who wasn't there?
Oscars, the mayor said he had a family emergency, but Tava Ostringer, assistant city administrator, she bluntly, in no uncertain terms, looked at all six of them there and said,
Don't mess around.
"You cannot stop them from building this. We have to honor our word." And so, it's one thing for politics to happen, but it's another when they look the city turn in the eye and do something opposite on camera to what they said.
Well,
It's
let's
a
look at
dangerous
that
route.
for a second. Yesterday was the first meeting of the Historic Landmarks Commission and the architects of the Paseo Nuevo housing project. I was not there, but I would say with that project, with 500, however many hundreds of housing units, the city's word and the city being perceived and cast as a fickle, one day I'm for this and one day I'm against it, is a luxury they cannot afford. And if you are Kelly McAdoo and Sarah Connect and the people running City Hall, you do not want any movable parts coming around to bite you in the ass when you're trying to get the mall rebuilt.
Yeah. And in that connection, I want to clarify from last week, we talked about this issue a lot, that none of my comments were intended to be critical of the Yardy brothers and their building of affordable housing down there. They were all intended to be critical of their lobbyist, Ben Romo. So
Is this
anyway,
make him alive? We're doing apologies now? What is this?
well, no, I thought it was a way to take another cheap shot at Romo, and that was all. So Nick, speaking of things that make my head hurt, Sable Oil has been, there've been so many developments since last we spoke. We talked a little bit about the criminal charges that have been brought by the district attorney, and I had a whole thing with Greg about his bill that is going to pretty clearly say that the Coastal Commission has jurisdiction over this pipeline. But the thing we haven't talked about is the judge trying to cut the baby in half about the supervisor's 2-2 vote about whether Sable could, or basically Exxon, I guess, could transfer the name and so on to Sable, which has them in court. Sable has now sued the county, correct? And so she wants them to vote again. Can you sort that out a little bit?
Yeah, okay. I'm a big fan of the cut the baby in half metaphor. I think
Yes, in fact,
case,
a Google search shows that you have used it 11,800
let's say if you were going to do a
in
chat
the last
GBT,
year.
if you were going to do a chat GBT impersonation of me, the lead would have cutting the baby in half and kicking the can down the road in the lead. But I think that the half that the environmentalists got in this one is the head, and the other half that Sable got was the torso. And I think that it was a big victory for the county of Santa Barbara and for the enviros, even though Sable was telling me and has told me very emphatically otherwise. Sable was trying to argue that because the supervisors were tied 2-2 on the appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of the transfer of title and permits, that the tie reversed to the Planning Commission, and therefore the transfer was go forward. And for Exxon, this is a big deal. They are still on the hook somehow for whatever happens with this project. So if there is a big shitstorm, Sable is on the hook. Not Sable, but Exxon. So they want this transfer to go forward. The judge said no. If you read the language of the county's law, and the county is the only jurisdiction on the entire planet Earth that has a law that says we have rights to approve the transfer of ownership in oil companies. Only place on planet Earth where this exists. So it matters that the county supervisors at this stage of the game must, not should, but must either decide in favor, against, or modify what
by Georgia. So the judge is telling the legislative body, you must do this, directing them.
Yeah, it says you do not have the luxury of kicking it back to the Planning Commission. You do not have the luxury of not deciding. So it's going to go. It has to go back to the Planning Commission. It goes back to the supervisors within 60 days, which is sometime late November. And then if that doesn't work, if they can't resolve it then they have to go back within another 45 days. And they have to keep doing that and keep doing that and keep doing that until they decide.
Except in the meantime, since the 2-2 vote, of course, Supervisor Joan Hartman has famously discovered, oh, look, on the mantle, a letter from the FPPC
I am not recused after all. I can vote.
that I'm allowed to vote. So it's going to be 3-2, right?
I don't see how it is not. And I think what I am hearing from the fourth floor of the county administration building is the impact of the criminal charges being filed against Sable by the DA is definitely making the supervisors feel much more emboldened,
stiffening their spines.
And really, actually, what I heard one person say is, I was saying, I mean, one of the issues is, does Sable have enough insurance to cover the big mess? Now, Sable has $700 million worth of insurance, but the last oil spill 15 years ago will cost $850 million to clean up, and they're still fighting with their insurance company. But the state law says the county can only require $100 million. So I don't know how they do all that, but I was asking somebody on the fourth floor, had Sable tried to basically finesse the deal by saying, you need $1 billion worth of insurance, I'll give you $1 billion worth of insurance. The response I had was, at this point, given the lawsuit against them, I don't know if there's any amount of insurance that would make us feel comfortable with Sable as an operator.
So if you add it all up, Greg's bill, the DA's charges, this apparently looming vote against them at the supervisors, the $11 million in fines from the coast, it would appear that the momentum, if not the tide itself, has turned against Sable in terms of reopening his pipeline. But then I saw this letter signed by Salud yesterday, along with Adam Schiff and 14 or 15 other California members, to the Trump administration saying, keep your hands off. You're not allowed to be involved in this project. Is that just more the same, or was that something new?
Well, here's the play that people are thinking about where the feds might interject. If you don't let us use the pipeline, we will barge the oil. We will take the oil and we will put it on barges, and then we'll ship it someplace else. So we will bypass your stinking pipeline. And so that would be a federal play. It's in federal waters. And that would be a massive sort of reversal on the big fight
The last 100 years.
Yeah. So that is where Salud and Schiff are making noise.
Has there been any specific, just concrete evidence that they're planning to do that?
Um, I've only heard people on the fourth floor talk about it and
Where
say,
would
well,
they ship it to? Long Beach? Where
probably. I mean,
that would be something.
yeah,
Not good. Oh man. Really? That's terrible.
you heard it here first.
Yeah, really. Okay. Wow.
It
Okay.
is a big wow.
That took my breath away. All right. Hey, Josh, you had this piece about the Homeless Navigation Center known as FARO, and the city can't help it. That's the worst acronym
Oh
ever.
no, I have a better one.
Okay, well, you save it for. Oh, by the way, Nick, while you were speaking, I am of course the master of multitasking, and so I did ask Chat GPT how many times you had used the phrase "cut the baby in half" in the last 2 years, and I had guessed 11,528. The correct answer is three, so not bad. Twice in 2024 and once this year. So,
Oh, okay.
but
I'm flipping.
it's fall's only begun, so plenty of time. Anyway, Josh, talk about what's going on with the contract for this, and is there going to be a new vendor apparently?
Well, the city of Santa Barbara and Kelly McAdoo, the city administrator, they have made this move to get a new provider or new operator of the FARO Center, which is the Homeless Day Center. This used to be a place at Alameda Park. People would go get their services met, clothing, food. They moved it out of there because there was a lot of neighborhood issues or complaints. So they finally found this place on Chapala to sort of a huge pomp and circumstance when they announced it, and this was going to be the big save cure-all of everything. And they even celebrated it earlier this year at the State of the City. Well, the Jody House and some other tenants nearby have said that the clientele, the population is causing a lot of trouble. There's public urination, there's cursing, there's smoking, there's all sorts of behavior that is problematic to, there's retail shops. The Jody House treats traumatic brain injuries. There's lots of stuff that's happening there. So the city said basically you're done. They canceled the contract and they said we're going to go out to bid. SB Act basically said, wait, hold on, no, and they got some legal help and they're trying to hold on to this. So that was kind of what happened. The latest move is the city has decided to go to a month contract with them and put out an RFP to find a new operator in January. Now, I guess it could be SB Act, right? But I think that there's talk of other providers,
Who would it
Well,
be?
CNET, Good
let me
Samaritan
jump.
Shelter. I think that's the play. I mean, it looks like if it were a person, time to look for another job kind of thing. The writing seems on the wall, but
I wouldn't. That is a very reasonable assumption, but I wouldn't go there quite so fast because A, what I'm hearing is relations between Jody House and the FARO Center are improved. That the FARO Center is now taking in something like 26 people a day as opposed to 70. So some of the attendant noise and friction is way down. I think the operators of the FARO Center have gotten the message, and so they are being more responsive. And what I'm hearing is the problems are not so great as they were before, and they will be allowed to bid. And the other question is what I'm hearing from the trees, that Good Samaritan is probably, which is like pretty much doing every other homeless thing in Santa Barbara County, is not likely to put in a bid. And the other one that would be likely to be able to do it would be CityNet. And CityNet had management over the roads, whatever the red roads in on Outer State Street a couple of years ago, when that became a temporary homeless place. And it really, I think operating homeless facilities is a lot easier said than done, and it requires a skill set that few people have. And I think an argument can be made that the FARO Center maybe a little bit stuck in some sort of recalcitrant mindset has gotten way more responsive, and that they may wind up with it.
All right.
And part of that, and what Nick says is true as far as I know too, but they've also already moved to referral only. So one of the
Right.
reasons that they're treating fewer people is they're not allowing drop-ins anymore, which was part of the problem, the loitering, the lingering, and now you have to be referred by a service provider. So that has definitely reduced the problem.
Right.
Right.
Another good move by our high-powered all-star city administrator, Kelly McAdoo. Hey, I apologize. I'm going to have to run, but because I did want to talk about this immigrant healthcare thing. Everybody should go read Nick's story in the Just Out Independent about this. It's another scandal of the Trump administration kicking a bunch of people off of healthcare and this
7,500 patients of the
and
Santa Barbara County clinics.
leaving local government to try to figure out what to do. But I heard some political gossip over the weekend, and I just had to ask you fellows about it since it concerns the fourth district city council race next year, which is where I live. So it's obviously of more importance than almost anything. So Kristen Snedden's termed out. We all expect that she's going to run for mayor. But tell me, is this true? Jason Dominguez has moved to the going to run. Your hero, Devin Wardlaw, the tribune of the cannabis industry, is going to run, and Dale Francisco is going to run. Is that true?
Wow.
Yeah, that all sounds plausible. The only one I know is Devin Wardlow, and then I believe there's a planning commissioner who's probably going to run who hasn't announced yet.
Well,
But
she's a planning commissioner, isn't she?
yeah, there's another one.
Oh, okay. All right. Have you heard any? You haven't heard?
I've heard mumblings and rumblings of Jason Dominguez. I had not heard about Dale. He might, he might say,
Well, running against those two, Dale would have a very good chance, I would think, in that district particularly.
it's a hard. I mean, Dale is I really like Dale, but he is a Republican at a time in history where being an R is just not going to help you with the voters, no matter how. I mean, I think where Dale will have real resonance and strength is he really does represent, neighborhood control. It's a funny thing. He's a Republican.
Well, Dale, I mean, he's a throwback Republican.
He's a
not really
throwback Republican.
Republican.
He is not. He's not a Trumper, but he doesn't go out of his way to disavow it. He sort of rolls his
Especially when
eyes.
he's debating
absurdity of it.
Annabeth Jackson on KEYT, which I know everybody. What's incredible, greater ratings than Jimmy Kimmel, the Dale Francisco, Annabeth Jackson set.
I think that anyone who wants to win is going to need Kristen Snedden's endorsement because we must not forget how popular she is among her constituents. And I mean, if Jason Dominguez thinks he's going to win District 4, I mean, I will be more stunned than Doss Williams losing to Roy Lee if that were to happen.
All right, I just want to emphasize this all gossip, this silly season in politics, and there's a lot of scenarios and speculation going on, and it was just some gossip basically that I heard that I wanted to run by you two fellas.
We don't gossip, Jerry. We're all about the truth and facts and objectivity.
That's your show, Josh. This is my show. All right, Nick Welsh, Josh Molina, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. And thank you all for watching. And we'll see you next time on Newsmakers.
All right.
Thank you.